Hi, hello, welcome. So let's get started. Let me introduce myself. My name is Robinson Meunier. I'm a solutions engineer at Rudder, and I will host this webinar. And the theme is how to ensure compliance with security benchmarks such as CIS to secure your IT systems. So in this webinar, we'll be using Livestorm. Thanks to it, you'll be able to ask questions. Feel free to ask them during the presentation, and I will do my best to answer them. And with Livestorm, I will also submit polls with it, and they will let me know a little bit more about you. So let's begin with a poll. Today, do you work with benchmarks? I will just answer it also. So thank you for your answers. In this webinar, we'll start by talking about the stakes for cybersecurity here for today. Then we'll talk about hardening and compliance with benchmarks. To finally, I will present you the Rudder solution policy and benchmark compliance. So it will be a small demo. And we'll be finishing this webinar with the time for questions and answers. So nowadays, what is at stake for cybersecurity? So I think you're all aware of the context, but what I'm interested in that part is studying the statistics of the attacks. And I think they can teach us how to protect ourselves in the most efficient way. So there's like this popular saying now, it is no longer about knowing if a company will undergo a cyber attack, but when it will get attacked. In 2033, we had an increase of more than 100% of ransomware attacks, nearly 200 zero-day vulnerabilities, nearly 30,000 of CVEs, and one data leak costs $4.4 million. So with this number of attacks, you can guess that they reach all types of structures, and they become more and more usual and sophisticated. In particular, we have multi-vectorial attacks. So they use different vectors, and all the main vectors come directly from the target company itself. We have three main major errors that should be avoided. The first one is human errors with 33%. So basically just like carelessness or configuration or manipulation errors. With 34%, we have residual vulnerabilities. So basically, it's just machines that haven't been patched by the teams. And finally, with 35%, we have unapproved applications. So basically, it just means that someone downloaded a compromised software and didn't delete it or just use it every day. So that was the causes of the cyber attacks. And now the consequences are breakdowns, extortions, data stealing, and the brand damaged. So now let's focus on hardening and compliance with benchmarks. So first, we are going to define the terms just to be sure that we speak about the same thing. So hardening, and now I'm going to challenge you. How would you define the concept of hardening? I will give you a few seconds to answer that. Yeah, I can see everyone guessed the right answer. So hardening is the process of securing a system. And it comes with 3 principles. So the first one is minimization. So the objective of that principle is to avoid unnecessary complexity on systems as much as possible. And in particular, the approach consists of reducing the objects, so they can be softwares, libraries, tools installed on the system, to the essential. So the underlying of the minimization principle is to reduce the possible attack surface. The second principle is the principle of least privilege. So it defines that any object or entity managed by a system only has the rights strictly necessary for its execution and nothing more. And finally, the third one is the defense in depth principle. And this one requires the design of several independent and complementary layers of security. Benchmark. What is a benchmark? A benchmark is a set of security policies describing the measures to be taken to harden a system. So a benchmark can be internal, with, for example, the information security policy, or external, and I will just come back later to them in the next slide. And finally, it's like the topic of the webinar, the compliance, and I'm going to challenge you again. So please try to find the right definition. So is it the measure of the respect to security policies defined in the reference, the capacity to be updated of a system, or the process of adhering to the minimum legal and regulatory requirements? Yeah, I can see that everybody got it right again. So this is the measure of the respect to security policies defined in a reference, such a benchmark. So everybody got it right. Now let's talk about benchmarks and who is writing them. So a major reference in the domain is CIS. It's the Center for Internet Security. It is an American non-profit organization founded in 2000, and its goal is to help individuals, businesses, and governments to protect themselves against pervasive cyber attacks. It publishes recommendations. They are established via consensus. They target operating systems or applications. And in each benchmark, there are different levels of hardening. And for one benchmark, there is between 250 and 500 policies. So it's quite a lot. And each benchmark is specific to the US and its version. For your information, there are other references. So in the USA, there is the NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. It belongs to the US Department of Commerce, and it offers several security benchmarks and resources to help organizations. But in those references, there are some CIS benchmarks. So it means that the US governments use and take for reference CIS. There are also European references. So in France, we have the ANSI. Maybe you know about it. Implementing a benchmark can be a very difficult task, especially because it's complex. One benchmark has around 250 to 500 policies. It can be very time-consuming with heterogeneous parts, especially with different OS. Some policies in the benchmarks can't be automated. If we looked at the example given, so this is extracted from the CIS benchmark, and if you look at it, you can see that it asking that the human eye is just looking at something in the output and remove the package containing the service if it should not be there. So the human needs to do something on that policy. Implementing a benchmark requires expertise, as every benchmark needs to be customized. There are a lot of policies that should not be applied according to the use case and the machine. It can be very risky and can cause definitive damages. And finally, it can be very complicated for some policies, especially to implement them in existing environments. And if we look at the example given, they ask to ensure that there is a separate partition for /var. So for, maybe you know, but it can be quite easy to do it at installation, but once the OS is already installed, it can be very tricky. So Rudder, who are we, and what are we going to what do we do? So we are a French publisher of open source software for operational security automation. And our goal is to enable you to implement and maintain your security model. So to do that, for this operational security automation, we have 3 solutions. The first one is the security configuration management. With it, you can deploy and audit configurations. The Rudder is agent-based, the Rudder platform. So you have agents that will control and remediate every 5 minutes your configurations. The second solution is the vulnerability and patch management. So with it, you can detect and monitor CVEs, you can remediate them, and you can patch your machines. And finally, this is the third solution, and this is what I'm going to show you later in the demo. This is the new solution and still in beta testing. This is the policy and benchmark compliance module solution. And with it, you will have access to a catalog of benchmarks, of CIS benchmarks. And the goal is to be able to apply them easily, to customize them if you want to. And it's just replacing the implementing of the benchmarks that can be very time consuming and difficult, as we saw in the previous slide. And the 3 solutions, they come with an intuitive interface, a full API, and they are compatible with Windows and Linux for cloud servers and workstations. Okay, so now I will switch to the demonstration. So when the user is connecting to Rudder, he arrives on the dashboard. So this is the dashboard. On this instance, you can see there are 8 nodes registered. We have different scores, a global one, a specific score for the compliance, for vulnerabilities, or for system updates. And every score is leveled in categories, A being the better one in blue and F the worst in red. And the last score we are interested in is the Rudder security checks this is the results from the policy and benchmark compliance solution. So this solution is available in the security management menu, security benchmarks. And here we can see there is already 2 configured benchmarks. I will just show you how to create one. So when you click on create, you have to select a benchmark template. So for now, there is only the Rudder security checks template. This is a homemade benchmark. So basically, there are like 100 policies in it, and they cover the main themes of every benchmark. And each policy is extracted from common benchmarks in CIS. So in the first tab, you will have to enter some basic information such as the name or the description. Then you will choose your targets. So the targets in Rudder are groups. The groups can be dynamic or static. The dynamic groups is really a high value feature in Rudder because with it you can group your machines according anything that can be softwares, hardware, application, or even environments. So for example, here we can see we have groups for different OS, for applications installed on the machine, or by the function of the servers, or even groups with the CVE. Once you choose your targets, you will have to enter the parameters. Here we can see the 9 different themes we have in this benchmark. And for each theme, there are different items. The items are policies, and you will be able to activate them if you want to. You can activate them in audit mode. So in audits, there will be no remediation. So Rudder will just check if the policy is applied, and if it's not, it will just report it. When in enforce mode, if the policy is not compliant, it will remediate it. Sorry. So for each theme, we can see we have like the main theme of every benchmark. So there is like some privilege escalation, system file permissions, SSH configuration, password rules, logging, auditing, system configurations. And for some policies, we have also some parameters that can be changed. So for example, in this one, you can choose the maximum size of a log file in megabytes, and the default is 8 megabytes. So the goal is really to be able to configure and customize as you want and as you need your benchmarks. Once you finish configuring one benchmark, you will get a result that will look like that. You can find the scores with the letters here that we already saw in the dashboard. And for each policy, you will be able to have the results for every node that is concerned by this benchmark. But if you want the results for only one node, you are also able to go in the nodes tab and look at the results for only a node. And here we have the result for all the benchmark, only for the node prod app internal. Okay, so this is the end of the demonstration. So first, can you tell me if you would be interested in a demo of Rudder? And I will be glad to do it for you. And else, I'm available for any question that you can have, and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, so there is no question. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you had found some interesting information in this webinar. And feel free to contact me later if you have other questions that came in mind in robinson.main@rudder.io. And have a nice day.